Is Windows 11 really that bad? Let's find out. Windows 11 is the latest version of Microsoft Windows, released in October of 2021. It has seen many updates and new features since its initial release, and it is the successor to Windows 10, which was released 6 years and about 3 months prior to Windows 11. Windows 10 was and still is a huge success, now being the most used version worldwide, and by far making it the most popular version of Windows to date, with Windows 7 and XP taking that title many years prior to Windows 10. Windows 11 has also seen lots of controversy surrounding it, such as the increasing concern over the collection of data from users with Microsoft's dirty data collection tactics, the removal of certain features, such as a customizable taskbar, which is minimal, but can be annoying for some users who like to change their taskbar position. The context menus are incredibly confusing compared to what we had in Windows 10, and it seems to be breaking a lot of systems with the new updates, breaking SSDs in months past, and causing lots of issues using it in general. But here's the worst thing about Windows 11, it is incredibly restrictive, hardware-wise. As it now, you have to have a TPM 2.0 module, which is used to store credentials and certain keys, which only one operating system will most likely have access to, and this also proactively blocks users from installing Linux to even dual boot with Windows, or installing it to replace Windows entirely. Now you guys are up shit creek without a paddle. But I tell you what, there will always be smarties out there who find workarounds to get around such restrictions, and Microsoft is proactively restricting, in fact, blocking your ability to install Windows 11 on unsupported hardware, so those of you on older machines will be left with no choice but to continue using Windows 10 until it goes end of life, and potentially look at upgrading to the LTSC version, which will have support up until January 2032. Windows 11 has gained about 24% of the market, which if you carefully examine, is more than all the consumers put together, plus some of the businesses. What really surprised me is that Jamaica is by far the only country with nearly half the population using Windows 11, and considering how poor and impoverished the people in Jamaica are, this is relatively surprising. However, Windows 11 in most of the world is on about 20 to 30% of all devices. In Australia, for example, they currently have about 35% of the entire population on Windows 11, which means adoption has gained significantly since its initial release, but Windows 10 holds 62% of market share in Australia, so this means that more than half the country is on Windows 10, and likely will be for a few years yet, which is far better than the situation they have in Armenia. They have Windows XP on more than about 70% of PCs, which draws major concern over security risks and vulnerabilities. Those Armenians would surely be concerned about those risks, but they are too poor and cannot afford newer hardware, and this is the case for lots of places such as India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, the whole entire continent of Africa, and the Middle East, as well as the majority of Asia. The only places where Windows 11 is likely to see mass adoption are in rich countries such as America, the United Kingdom, Australia, etc. We are already seeing a big increase in Australia. It's possible that Windows 10 and 11 could reach over half the entire population. However, the growth is incredibly slow, stagnating constantly, and sometimes even dropping a bit. So worldwide, Windows 11 is only on about 25% of PCs, but that means that more than every 1 out of 4 PCs or laptops run Windows 11. However, compared with Windows 10, it does not compare whatsoever. 10 still shows undefeatable dominance, and like Windows XP, we could have a serious issue with the end of support. See what happens when you support the system for far too long. I mean, upgrading can be cost prohibitive, and newer versions are often buggy until the kinks have been ironed out, but Microsoft has supported some versions for longer than others, and XP is a perfect and notable case of that. They even did this with Windows 7, although Vista, 8 and 8.1, did not get any sort of extended security program offering, so users were forced to upgrade to the latest version of Windows at the time, so Windows 10 was considered. since it is the second newest version to Windows 11, and even though no new features are given to it, many users are simply reluctant to let go of their very beloved system. However, there has also been an increasing shift towards Linux in the less fortunate communities, and because inequality is becoming greater than ever before, users will be left with no other choice if they cannot upgrade past Windows 10 beyond the deadline for the end of support on October 14, 2025, the day Microsoft plans to end all support for Windows 10. So this will make it a massive danger to your online security and privacy. In fact, we could see the worst apocalypse of malware than ever before, because so many mission-critical systems at hospitals, medical centers, service stations and all, will be left vulnerable to the latest threats and advancements in malware. Zero-day threats are a massive concern because these are active exploits that do not get patched instantly, and they can be pretty devastating, depending on what type of threat is being presented in the first place. But Windows 11 is so cost-prohibitive it's not funny. The free upgrades from Windows 7 and 8.1 are over as well. No more free upgrades for you guys. Microsoft decided to slam the door in your face, but you will have to get used to them being greedy and leaving you poor folk without any choice but to either keep using the outdated and insecure operating system, or switch to an alternative, like Mac OS, which is also extremely cost-prohibitive, and not by far anywhere near my recommended, because I hate corporate control, and Apple does lots of dodgy stuff as well, so my only feasible and advisable alternative I recommend you look into is Linux, because Linux offers you a free and open-source solution, so you won't have to pay to use it or download it, and a shit ton of software for it is FOSS, free open-source software. And a great deal of it can do the same stuff the proprietary subscription-based software can do, and personally, I object to paying for any type of subscription-based software, whether it's an Office suite, your very operating system, or even a service like YouTube Premium or Spotify Premium. They are simply overpriced and not worth paying for on the count of the fact that you're not getting many features, and it's often too expensive. Take Netflix for example. It costs $15 and about 50 cents per month to pay to access the wide range of content featured on there. However, it's simply too expensive for some individuals, who already might have enough outgoing expenses as is. Do you really expect those kind of people to be able to pay for more stuff? The answer to that should be pretty obvious, so I will leave it up to you as to guess as to whether or not poor people should and could pay for more subscriptions. With the disaster that is Windows 11, I will say that the bad connotations surrounding it certainly hold tried and true to this day. There is no denying that Windows 11 is indeed a bad version of Windows. This does not mean it doesn't have certain aspects that are good about it. It most certainly does. Take the new tab files and notes for example, or the ability to reset Windows without wiping your entire hard drive or SSD, as well as a new and refreshing interface, as well as new and improved settings app. However, Microsoft is actively making it worse as the days go by. So many are downright refusing to upgrade, and as a result, Microsoft is losing their game at catching all the fish. They do seem to have pretty much all the consumer market on Windows 11, but the business market, that's a very different story, and many still use Windows 8.1, 7, Vista, and older, despite being so outdated and unsupported, and very vulnerable to new and improved security vulnerabilities, threats, zero-day flaws, etc. So these users have to be extremely careful as to not download any sort of malware, or open up suspicious attachments in emails, and you also have to make sure that the software you use is still supported on those older systems by the respective developers. This also applies to unsupported Mac OS, Android, and iOS users who are on unsupported and outdated versions of these systems. So, is Windows 11 really that bad? Yes, 100% guaranteed. It is the worst and by far Microsoft's biggest mistake addition so far. It has been rushed out to market and now sees the introductions of locking you tightly into Microsoft's whole ecosystem, much like Apple does with its users. So Microsoft will continue to dominate the PC market for centuries to come. but there will be a continual migration for a certain percentage of people towards other operating systems, OSs, such as Linux, or the much-beloved Chrome OS Flex, which many are now seeing as a capable and viable alternative to Microsoft Windows and Apple's Mac OS. Haiku OS and some lesser-known systems also seem to be of some interest to some people. In fact, Linux holds a respectable 3% market share worldwide, and Chrome OS holds a very respectable 4.09% market share worldwide, with the unknown systems holding just a bit under 2% market share worldwide. This really goes to show you that Microsoft is starting to struggle with dominance, as other big tech companies such as Apple and Google are swaying people to go to their systems, and even the gradual push towards Linux is enough for some people to get convinced and switch. But here is the big problem: Linux is not for everyone. It lacks a lot of software support by business standard apps like Adobe's whole suite of professional applications. The hardware support can be a hit or a miss and can be very frustrating to resolve, as sometimes you cannot always find the right bit of info. It takes a lot more looking around on forums to find troubleshooting methods for Linux, though they are often not too hard, if you're prepared to get your hands dirty with the terminal, which most people are not. So if that's the case, I really think you should not switch to Linux. Look at Google's Chrome OS Flex as a free alternative instead, because it is much easier to use, and you have access to Google's whole G suite of services and applications all right in one system, and Chrome OS can run Linux apps natively thanks to the support with Linux on Chrome OS. It is a container you use to run Linux apps, which can help increase your productivity by a long shot. However, you are restricted to both Android and Linux software on Chrome OS, so for any big-name games or software, sorry, you might be out of luck. However, if you're doing this because of costs, you should research and find some amazing free and open-source software to use. If productivity is important to you, and my only other real alternative I could guide you to is a mobile OS. But a phone is not a computer, it's far more limited in functionality, and most people do not want to ditch their PCs in favor of phones. Most users will be hardcore users and keep their PCs. The only ones who trade off are ones who no longer need a PC and trade it off for a phone or tablet, because maybe that's all they need. But the majority of PC users use a PC to have access to advanced software that no other operating system has. This is why Windows will continue to dominate the market for centuries to come, and guess what? There is absolutely nothing that either you, me, or anyone else can do about it. Microsoft will continue to disappoint and shit on you consumers, and you will have to get used to that, because planned obsolescence is not bullshit. It is so much the reality we live in, and with the end of support for Windows 10 drawing closer as time goes by, you will have to seriously plan out a contingency plan of sorts, to upgrade and stay safe, because it's not advisable to stay on an outdated OS. Forget about mentioning the OS you use at this point. No system is impervious to malware, not even Linux, BSD, and these other systems. However, you can ensure you stay safe by having the latest updates to protect you from the latest threats and malware. Anyway, time to draw things to a close now, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video on me ranting about how bad Windows 11 is, why it's bad, why Microsoft will continue to dominate the market, and why Linux will never be the next big thing. As sad as that may be, it's reality, and reality does not give a shit about your so-called facts. Facts don't care about your opinions, and we have to suck that up and deal with it, because you cannot change what these companies do. Nobody has the power. We are powerless, and we have to put up and shut up, or we take a hard pill to swallow and push ourselves onto another system, which can be impossible for a lot of people. Most people are not willing to learn new things, and Linux ain't no exception to that. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please let me know what you think of Windows 11 in the comments section below. I would love to hear from you. See you next video. Bye for now.